we're here to help advance the kingdom by assisting the church. And so what we say is, we don't want you bogged down with all of the details, the minutia of risk management. We want you focused on what you are called to do in your ministry. And so put that on our shoulders to help us carry that weight for you so that you can stay focused ministering to your team and preparing your team and ultimately serving the Lord in a cross-cultural context.
Welcome back to the Lightwell Podcast. When you feel the call to take the good news outside of your neighborhood, what are the things you need to do to make sure you're safe and protected and taking good care of everybody that's coming with you on that same call, that same mission? That's our conversation we're going to have today with Jonathan Norton. He's a producer for Lightwell Insurance Advisors in Arizona and in the state of Utah. And he has great thoughts on this, not just from the perspective of someone who knows insurance, but he just returned from a mission trip last month and has that perspective from a firsthand in-country standpoint as well. So this is a great conversation. Get a pen and a pad ready. Let's get right into our conversation with Jonathan Norton. Well, I am very happy to be joined today by my friend Jonathan Norton. He is a producer for Lightwell in the state of Arizona and also in Utah. Jonathan, thanks for being here today.
Adam, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So glad to have you. Really glad that you gave us your time today because we have a very specific thing to talk about that is a passion area of yours, in addition to being something that you're a specialist in on the insurance side, and that's mission travel. And I say that it's a passion area of yours because, if I'm right, you just got back from your second mission trip of the year last month in July. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. February, I was with my church in Mexico. As you said, I'm in Arizona, so we're a border state, and so there's a lot of mission travel that we do down south to Mexico, and I got to do that on an extended weekend over President's Weekend. But yeah, in July here, from the 1st to the 16th, I was in Latvia in Eastern Europe through an awesome organization that works with youth ministries. And we got to help do a camp for kids who usually wouldn't get to go on a camp and help participate in that.
That's really awesome. What was your role? Did you have a specific function within that group that you did for
Yeah,
the kids?
I'm getting older, so I was considered the camp dad. So I just helped out anywhere needed. Played guitar, did some of the camp talks, and was just there to help out anywhere needed to make sure the camp went off without a hitch. And it's awesome, just building relationships with the students, pointing them towards Jesus. It was a great time.
That's really cool. Well, I'm glad that you got back safe and that we could talk about this today. But it is good to know that this isn't something that you do as a professional service for others, but you really understand what it means to be a participant in the trip itself. So, seeing
Yeah.
it from both of those sides, how do you help ministries who do have mission travelers understand what their needs are with insurance?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I do think it is a unique perspective that I have, and coming from the ministry standpoint. Before I even started here at the insurance agency, I was an employee at my church, and the first job I got hired for was to be a missions director. So I did that for a number of years, working with local missions, but also international mission travel. So it has given me a unique perspective on not just seeing it purely from a risk management standpoint, and all the things that could go wrong, but really seeing it from a ministry standpoint and the need and reasons why we go on mission trips all over the world to spread the gospel. So yeah, so that's probably one of the advantages that I bring to the table in that. And I think one of the most important things that you can look at from mission travel insurance, especially from a leader perspective, is just having a peace of mind, knowing that when you're on a trip, you're bringing all these people with you on a trip to a different cultural place, to a unique environment, a unique experience, to know that these people are protected and they're taken care of all along the way.
Hmm. And so that's wonderful. And within that, are there specific ways that you talk about the insurance needs of a mission trip that help give people a sense of peace of mind as they're working through the purchasing of that product and then also planning their trip?
Yeah, really what it comes down to, when I say peace of mind, like to know, hey, if there was an incident that happened, or if there was a bad illness that happened, or if there was some type of security issue that went on in the country that we're in, just being able to know that, hey, this is already taken care of. If something does happen, we have things in place, we have steps in place, because we're in a totally new environment for the most part. We're unsure of how things work, and to know that there is a product like mission travel insurance that is there with experienced people that know what to do in different scenarios, that really gives me a peace of mind. So like, I think one of the biggest misconceptions that a lot of people have, especially first time mission travelers, is that, hey, I have my own health insurance back home in the States, and so I'm fine if I get injured or something happens. I'm going to be totally taken care of because I have insurance. But that most of the time, that's far from the truth, because once you leave the United States, um, your health insurance may or may not provide any protections from that point on. And if they do, it might be very basic, right? When we're in the States and we have health insurance, we're already asking when something happens, does my insurance cover this? Do I have a copay? Do I have a deductible? Is this in network or out of network? There's all those questions where we don't always know the answer to begin with our own health insurance, and now we're putting a foreign context into it, and so that's where like that peace of mind really comes in, to know, oh, this is a product specifically built for travelers going out of their home country to a different context and providing coverage for anything that might happen along the way.
Well, and to layer on top of that, the personal insurance misconception of that, is there also a misconception for churches who think their insurance policy by default will cover people who travel on their behalf?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. All the time. Yeah, you think, oh, well, our church has an insurance policy, right? If we have property coverage, but we also have liability coverage. And you would think, okay, liability coverage is there to provide coverage if something happens on a missions trip or at any type of ministry activity, really. And so they don't really separate that out. Like, a local activity that we have in town for a church is one thing, but now we're in a foreign context again. So knowing that, yeah, this probably isn't going to provide the level of coverage that we need is really important. Even with your general liability coverages, it's important to know that most liability policies have a specific coverage territory where you are and aren't covered. And so while that could be a totally different topic and an important discussion to have in the missions process, it is something to know that, yeah, that a lot of times your liability policy provides little to no coverage for the types of coverage that a mission trip insurance specific type of policy will provide for your team.
Okay, and so then when you are talking about, it's not your general liability insurance policy, it's not your general property policy, what are the coverages or policy features that you find are most important for a ministry to have in place for this product?
Yeah, when I see mission travel insurance policies, I think there's three main areas that I really tell my ministries that these are the areas that you get coverage that's unique and important for you guys to have. First and foremost is what probably everyone thinks about, is accident and illness coverage. If there is someone that gets injured on the trip, or someone that gets sick on a trip, there's coverage in place to provide coverage for the expenses that they incur while they're on the mission trip. For instance, in my trip to Latvia, we had multiple groups doing different things, and one of our groups, they were helping work at a church. And doing manual labor, fixing things up, and just helping the church building look nicer and get in good shape. And someone got injured and cut themselves pretty deep, to where they had to go to the local emergency room that we'd have in that country and get stitches. So that's your normal type of incident coverage that's there. They were able to pay out of pocket right there, but then they got those expenses reimbursed through their mission travel insurance. So those are the normal little things, everyday type of scenarios that probably happen on a mission trip. Someone just gets a little injury, and you know that there's coverage. But really, under that incident and illness type of coverage, I think the most important coverage there is your emergency evacuation coverage. It's not not that every trip does this, but I would say the majority of mission trips that come from the United States and are going out anywhere in the world, most likely you're going to one of a third world country or a least developed country. And then within those countries, you might be traveling to a remote area. So if there was an incident that happened, there's a high chance, a high probability that the resources there will not be able to properly care for the injury that happened. And so now what do you do? And that's where emergency evacuation comes in, to where you can coordinate with the insurance company and they will be able to get you where you currently are to a place that can properly see you and provide the proper care for you. Um, Many moons ago, I was a missionary in Latvia, or not in Latvia, I just went to Latvia, but I was a missionary in Rwanda in East Africa. And we had a family that was over there, a missionary family, and one of their children got injured pretty badly in an incident. Now, Rwanda is an amazing country, but they didn't have the proper resources and equipment to care for the specific injuries. So the mission travel insurance was able to coordinate flying them out on an air ambulance type flight to South Africa, where they would be able to be seen and cared for properly. And that's I think one of the most important parts of this whole insurance policy is the emergency evacuation coverage. And it's not cheap, and it's probably impossible for myself to coordinate that if it was my own team member to figure out how to do that. So again, going back to that peace of mind, I have the peace of mind knowing that this insurance policy is going to help coordinate everything, pay for those expenses, and get my team member to where they need to be properly seen and cared for.
And that is extremely important, and the stakes
Yeah.
are incredibly high. That's there's no simple way to solve that problem if you don't have the right insurance coverage in place. To
Yeah.
be remote across the world and have to figure something like that out is incredibly difficult. And so, even within a high stakes environment of any amount of mission travel, there are people who feel called to especially high risk areas, to places of the
hmm
world that are hard to reach. And sometimes there's even travel advisories in the place, but the call is strong enough where they feel like they need to go. So, how do you guide ministries who want to travel to or send missionaries to those high risk areas of the world?
Yeah, that's a great question. I feel like just because I, am a Christian myself, and um, ultimately we are all about making the good news of Jesus available to every place in the world, whether that's a low risk travel place or a high risk. So for me, I kind of have to take off my risk management hat a little bit and say, like, yeah, this is important and this is worth the risk in doing that. And I don't want to discourage the good news from going to where it needs to go, to say, well, this is too risky, don't do it, right? But at the same time, I think there are a number of steps and things you can put in place to, as much as possible, ensure a safe trip for your team and for yourself and going there. Um, and first off, I think you need to know that if you are going to a place where there is a known risk or there is an existing conflict already taken place, some of your coverages on your mission travel insurance policy might be excluded or limited. One of those areas would be security evacuation. Most of your mission travel insurance policies should have security evacuation coverage, and that means while you're on your trip and you're in your host country, if something does go down in that country, whether it's riots or maybe civil war or just something where it's unsafe, your policy will pay and provide coverage to get you and your team evacuated to safety in that. But when you're going to a country that already has a known conflict, a lot of times that coverage will be specifically excluded, and you'll know about that when you make the purchase. There's probably a little banner that said, "Hey, this coverage does not work in these following countries because of the known risk that's already there." So one is you got to count the cost and just know that, hey, we might not have the same amount of coverages in this place that we might have going on a mission trip in other places. Secondly, I think it's really important, and I would assume most teams would already do this, but I think it's really important to work with other mission organizations or local ministries that have a local presence in those countries. I think people with the local presence already understand the culture. They already understand the geopolitical issues that are happening in that context, and that knowledge and understanding is priceless. They will be best able to guide you and take care of you and make sure that you are uh, properly equipped, I guess, for that type of trip, and just being able to know all the risks involved. And lastly, I think there's a cool program that we have in the United States, at least. It's the U.S. State Department has a what they call the STEP program. That's a Smart Traveler Enrollment Program where before you go on a trip, you can enroll your team through the State Department website, letting them know, hey, our team is going here to this country, to this place, from this state to this state. And one, it's just nice to know that our country knows where you are in case something does go down. You guys are accounted for. But two, you also get all of the local news announcements and bulletins that come through the local U.S. Embassy. And so that's just another way to grab more information on where you're going. At the end of the day, there's always going to be the risk involved, especially going to a country, maybe a closed country to Christianity or a country with a known conflict. But the need is still so great. So I don't want to, tell people not to go. Just count the cost, know who's going on the trip from your team, those types of things, and take the steps that you can take, in advance in preparation for the trip.
Well, without a doubt, and maybe one of the more, we talk about empowering insurance decision makers a lot on this podcast, and one of the more
Hmm.
empowering things I heard or took from that answer is basically just you got to ask your insurance agent, is this country excluded? Because that should shape significantly what steps you take to protect yourself outside of that insurance policy if there are restrictions. So just being really
Yeah.
frank and clear with your insurance agent, is the trip I'm about to take subject to any exclusions on my policy? And if it's not, then you go, okay, the policy provisions should be able to respond the same way. And if it is, then you can act really wisely, like you're saying, count the cost. So I think that's a very empowering question that ministry leaders should take from that answer. That's good.
Yeah, for sure.
Now let's talk about. Insurance is full of stories of the worst case scenario and crazy things that
Yeah.
happen, but when you take that worldwide, it can put you in some precarious spots. So what's something that you've seen either through your own travel or through taking care of ministries who go on mission trips that's truly just, this is out of the ordinary here, this is unexpected, so that people can have an understanding of the real scope of what's at play with a mission trip?
Yeah, I have some examples of areas where things went great with coverage, and an example of where the church didn't even
I want
think
it all.
about this type of, and it's almost the same exact thing that happened. So it's I don't want to say cool because it's not cool when there's not
Of
the
course.
the proper things in place. But we had a church that we just started in train this last year, and I noticed in our initial conversations about insurance that they're pretty active in mission travel. So obviously that's an important topic to have as we were talking about insurance, but also I just love talking about it because I love missions in general, and mission trips that our churches go on. And as we got to talking, I found out that they have never even thought about the topic of mission travel insurance, and they just assume, here's our um, health insurance that people have or don't have, and if something happens, they're just responsible on their own for getting, for paying those coverage or for those coverages, or whatever it may be. But right before they switched over to us, they were on a mission trip with about 15 people in Central America, and the type of trip they did was a construction trip, and they were helping build some type of house for an orphanage in Central America. And they had a man up on the rafters helping build on the roof, and the rafters collapsed, and he fell and had a serious back injury. And then, you know, they're obviously freaking out, and they're trying to, call the local authorities to come and emergency teams to come and get him transported to the hospital. And that's taking a long time because they are in a remote area in this country. And then they're trying to think through, okay, well, how is his insurance going to help? And come to find out, this person's health insurance does not provide almost any coverage while they're out of the country. And so that was a hard lesson for this church to like come to realize, because one, at the end of the day, the church wasn't just going to leave one of their teammates to figure things out on their own. They were going to have to step in and make some important decisions, and at the end of the day, help out financially for what happened. Um, and so they came to us because one, they saw where they hadn't thought about this process, but also they just wish that their insurance person brought this up in the first place, and so that was one of the driving conversations for why they switched to working with our Lightwell team here in Arizona, is so that we can help them process and think through all of these scenarios before these trips happen. And then on the flip side, I already mentioned when I was living in Rwanda, the child that was injured, and how, because they did have things in place, everything was taken care for, on the financial side, but also on the medical side, flying the child and the family to South Africa to get cared for, as long as it took for them, the child to be healthy enough to fly back to Rwanda and ultimately fly back to the States for further checkups and appointments after that was happening. And so like it really makes it. And I don't like I know there's like the spiritual aspect, like we're doing these things for the Lord and to advance the kingdom, but really like these types of incidents can really make or break a trip as well. Just because on the one hand, the team had to put all of their resources and energy into caring for this person and trying to figure out how we're going to care for them and how we're going to pay for all these things. Whereas if these steps were put in place, in the beginning, yes, it's still a hard situation they had to go through, but a lot of that was taken out of their hands, and the care was provided for, the money was provided for, the transportation was provided for. So yes, while they're still focused on helping this person get better, they were still able to do ministry and keep focus on why they were there in the first place.
That's so good. And such an important distinction how two different organizations can face similar issues with very different outcomes. And it is the exact wrong time to find out that your insurance policy doesn't cover you when you're already on the trip and already facing that hard situation. So that begs the question, when in the process of planning and executing a mission trip is the right time to discuss the right insurance policy for that trip?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think, a lot of travel and mission travel insurance companies will allow you to purchase a policy just days in advance of your trip. That's awesome. But I think the conversation of, risk management and mission travel insurance should be sprinkled throughout the entire mission planning process. So usually that's, a year in advance, 10 months in advance, 8 months in advance. And I say that for various reasons. One, if you don't do this, which I'm assuming most churches already do, is when you're making this trip known to your congregation, there's usually some type of application involved for people that want to join the trip. And part of that is to get health information on the people going on the trip. And what happens if you have a person with pre-existing conditions that wants to be a part of this mission trip? I think those are questions that you should have many, many months in advance, so you can answer the question, should this person even be a part of the trip? Or if so, how does coverage work, or how does coverage not work if they have a flare up of their pre-existing condition? And I think that's something that you really want to know in advance, again, so there's no surprises if something does happen at the end of the day. And as you are planning the trip, it's also important to know, like, what type of trip are we doing? I think having someone go preach at a church for a few weeks in a different country is one type of mission travel thing. Having maybe a VBS type of trip where you're having games and activities where there could be injuries involved through that. Or like I mentioned in one of my examples, what if it's a construction trip where there's a lot more physical manual labor that's involved? All of those should have you have the discussion of risk management and mission travel insurance many months in advance, so you're selecting the right people on the trip, and people are aware of what could happen, and make sure that there's no surprises along the way. A lot of these travel insurance programs are going to have either limitations or exclusions when it comes to pre-existing conditions. So if I'm a person that I've had a problem, a health issue that happens every so often, I need to know if it flares up while I'm overseas, Am I, covered with this, or am I on my own, or how does that work, or how does it not work? So just having those conversations early on, especially when you're picking who's going on the trip, that's really important to know. And yes, at the end of the day, you don't need to purchase it until days before. Obviously, I'd recommend further in advance, but having that on your mind, thinking through those things early on, is really important. Another thing for why you should think through these many months in advance, we have a church here in the Phoenix area. They send a team to Belarus every year, and as a part of their passport customs process of going into the country, these teams need to show an official document that shows proof of insurance, health insurance for all of their team members. And so that's just something you need to know in advance and have the proper documentation. So that way, when you get to the airport in Minsk, that you're able to, as smooth as you can in that country, get through customs and passport without any issues. And so that's, again, it's something else that you need to know in advance. What does the country I'm going to require? Do they require anything from a health insurance standpoint? If so, what type of documentation do I need to have when we're going there?
That's really good. Basic stuff. Who's going? Where
Yeah,
are we going? What are we going to be doing while we're there? And based on the people that are coming, what needs do they have that might be unique? Basic as it may seem, really important to get that stuff decided and make sure you have the right coverage well in advance of actually lifting off. And
for
so,
sure.
you know, being in touch with this for, again, from both the missionary standpoint, you're there, but then also the insurance expert standpoint, are there trends that you see within the world of mission travel that are emerging, especially now that we're 4-ish years removed from, COVID? Like, how is it going now with mission travel?
Yeah, from what I have seen, and I think what you said talking about COVID is probably one of the drivers of this. Um, m- Churches are getting back into mission travel so much, and it has grown exponentially since everything was shut down in 2020 and 2021. But not just that, I think travel in general has grown so much so rapidly that we do see quite a few trends from just the travel side in and of itself. Um, One of or some of the coverages that you should also have within a mission travel insurance policy are travel related issues, such as stolen baggage, missed connection. There was a delay on a flight and we missed our connection. Now we have to spend 2 nights in a city. Those types of things, because there is so much travel, and on top of that, when do 90% of mission trips happen? During the summer peak season of travel in general. So airports are already overloaded, airlines are overloaded. When you're going to remote places, they don't fly there every day. And so if there is a delay, it just, backlogs things a lot. So some of the trends I've seen are just more of the travel related claims that could occur, and just being aware of those. Again, my trip to Latvia in July, I was in charge of making sure we had the right airfare, and getting all that taken care of through a travel agent. And we did that. And 2 weeks before we left, one of the airports we were traveling through announced that they were going to have a series of strikes during the month of July because of, a disagreement on the contract for all of the ground crew workers at this airport. And they listed 8 days. And with our luck, both of our outbound and inbound travel days were the days that they said they were going to have a strike. So it was really good to know, like, if we were stuck in this town for multiple days because of these strikes happening, that we had this travel insurance policy that wasn't only there to provide coverage for incidents and medical related issues, but also we had the opportunity to provide, to get to file a claim if we had to stay multiple nights in this city that we were only supposed to be a couple hours in. But it would cover our hotel stay, it would cover meals, transportation, things like that, that were things that we didn't expect to have these occur on the trip. These costs that were unexpected. I could know that we had coverage, and I think that is a rising trend to see more travel related claims, especially lost or stolen baggage. Well, I get to my trip and two of our people didn't have bags for 3 days. It was, lost somewhere along the way. And to know that they were able to purchase some clothes and get those costs reimbursed through the insurance was a nice thing. But it's also just a trend we've seen in general with more of our churches and ministries going on mission travel.
Wow, that is a lot to consider. So,
Hmm.
if you haven't said it already, is there any particular first step or bit of advice that you would give to a church or a mission sending organization, with whatever next step it might be? You could pick anything. What's one piece of advice that you find yourself often giving to organizations?
Yeah, a lot of our ministries either haven't been on mission trips in a long time, or it's just their first trip in general, and it can seem pretty daunting, all of the things to consider when planning for an overseas trip. It's so complex with all the different pieces to the puzzle that have to fit together. So my first piece of advice is do it. The Lord wants us to serve in any way possible, and in the States we're blessed, financially to be able to take on these type of trips and go to areas of the world that desperately need Jesus. They desperately need love and care and resources, just to survive. And if it's something that's on your heart as a ministry or a church, go for it. My next piece of advice would then be like, that's what we're here for, is to help you walk through that entire process of the risk management side of the mission trip, from who is a travel agent you would recommend, and knowing that there are travel agencies that are specifically focused on Christian mission workers, and know what's best for them in travel, to the health insurance, to the liability types of issues that might come up, and safety. Like, we're here to provide help and assistance and walk you through that entire process. I know, like, our mission is that we're here to help advance the kingdom by assisting the church. And so what we say is, we don't want you bogged down with all of the details, the minutia of risk management. We want you focused on what you are called to do in your ministry. And so put that on our shoulders to help us carry that weight for you, so that you can stay focused ministering to your team and preparing your team, and ultimately serving the Lord in a cross-cultural context. So yeah, it's daunting for sure, and there's a lot of pieces to the puzzle of mission travel and mission ministry. But it's so worth it. And not only does it make an impact to the people locally that you're serving, but your team is also going to be impacted when you can see the Lord working cross-culturally and in a bigger context. It just gives you such a greater appreciation for the universal church, that the Lord's doing work all over the world, and you get to be a part of his work in those contexts. So yeah,
Wow,
go for it. Do
that is
it.
a fantastic answer, and it might have actually covered, this last question I had for you. So if you say, "Ah, no, I got that,"
Hmm.
that's okay, but to give you
Yeah,
just one more opportunity to get more at how to make the most of working with an insurance agent, be it a Lightwell agent, which obviously this is the Lightwell podcast, we're gonna say Team Lightwell
for
all the
sure.
way, but
Yeah.
regardless, how can a ministry or a mission sending organization get the most out of working with an insurance agent, leaning on their expertise to effectively handle a mission trip?
Yeah, again, it's just that, an insurance agent should have the risk management understanding of all that's involved in a mission trip. And so help, leaning on them for advice and guidance through the process is so important. And obviously I'm biased and I work for Lightwell, but what's great about your Lightwell team is these are all people that love the Lord and have a heart for ministry, and to see the gospel brought to people all over the world. And so we're going to come from it, not just from the risk management side, because at the end of the day, you're going to have a lot of insurance companies and insurance agencies that will say, that's too risky, don't do this at all. Whereas we're going to come from the standpoint of, yeah, the Lord is working, and there needs to be people to go and to bring his message and his good news there. And we're going to help make that happen, but do it in a way as best as possible, to provide safety and security for your team on the trip. And at the end of the day, we the verse in Luke talking about how the harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few. And so we don't want to impede on people serving and working the harvest around the world.
Man, let's go.
Boom.
It's just, why don't you double down on great answers here at the end of the podcast? Jonathan Norton, producer in Arizona and Utah for Lightwell Insurance Advisors. I want to say thank you so much, not just for your time today, but for your heart for service and for your heart for the church and for taking the good news to the ends of the earth. I really appreciate the time today, man. Thank you so much.
Awesome, Adam. Appreciate you, brother. Thank you.
My thanks once again to Jonathan Norton, producer for Lightwell Insurance Advisors in Arizona and Utah. I just can't get enough of his heart for ministries who feel this call. I love the way he said it at the end. He just doesn't want to impede anyone who feels the call to take the good news well outside their neighborhood and to the ends of the earth. So my encouragement to you, if you're a ministry leader listening to this, is find someone in your area who you can talk to about these questions and make sure that the calling you feel as a ministry is supported by the insurance product you take with you. Until the next episode of the podcast, let's go and let it shine.